What's going on, guys? It's your boy Michigan Man, and today I am in Charlevoix, Michigan, and we are going to learn a little bit of history today about Charlevoix and the mushroom houses that are here and the architect who made them. This is my actually very first time ever coming to Charlevoix, so this should be a lot of fun and very interesting. And I've never been to the mushroom home tours, so let's go on an adventure, guys, and let's have some fun. And if you guys like this video, like, share, and subscribe. Let's go on an adventure. So here we are, guys, in Brookside Cemetery in Charlevoix, Michigan. And this is the final resting place of Earl Young, architect of the mushroom homes. It's pretty easy to find his grave. They actually have a GPS that leads you right to it. But I'm going to show you what to look for. There's actually street signs, Bryant and 4th Street. You'll see that right there. Right in Brookside Cemetery. It's beautiful, beautiful cemetery. And you'll see this rock. It says Young right on the stone. It's probably something that Earl dug up himself. And right here is the final resting place of Earl Young, architect, self-taught architect. Over a span of 52 years, Earl Young designed and built 31 structures in Charlevoix, Michigan, but was never a registered architect. He worked mostly in stone, using limestone, fieldstone, and boulders he found throughout northern Michigan. The homes are commonly referred to as Gnome Homes, Mushroom House, or Hobbit Houses. His door, window, roof, and fireplace designs were very distinct because of his use of curved lines. Young's goal was to show that a small stone house could be as impressive as a castle. Earl Young was born in Mansalona, Michigan in 1889 to parents Adolph and Myrtie Young. He moved to Charlevoix at 11 years old, where his father set up an insurance business as a teenager. Young was interested in photography and taught himself photo finishing. He took many photos in Charlevoix of both the city and the woods. In high school, he was on the skating team and the track team. During his senior year, Young was co-editor of his school newspaper with Irene Hersha, who would later become his wife. In 1908, he enrolled in the School of Architecture at the University of Michigan. He was influenced by Frank L. Wright's idea that buildings should respect their surroundings. Young was discouraged by the classic Greek, Roman, and Victorian architecture he was learning about and left school after only 1 year. That was the last time Young would have any formal schooling. He joined in his family's insurance business, which soon expanded to include realty. Which, for the rest of his life, he would say he was a realtor and would tell people that he had held his realtor's license for 60 years in the same building as the insurance agency. Young also had a photo finishing business and sold bread. During this time, he continued to learn about architecture and construction by reading books and magazines and talking to construction workers and stonemasons. On February 14th, 1914, Earl Young died and Earl was left alone in the family business. On September 21st, 1915, Young married Irene Hersha, his high school sweetheart. He joked that he married her to keep her off his staff. Over the next 11 years, the family grew to include 4 children: Drew, Marguerite, Louise, and Virginia. Young constructed homes during the mid-century modern era of architecture. This era is known for integrating nature into the houses. As Young always did, he would work around trees instead of cutting them down, and wanted the houses to be a harmonious part of the landscape instead of destroying or overshadowing. His architecture from the time features open, flowing floor plans in the beginning post of beam structure with light glass walls. Many of Young's homes have open floor plans, but the stone walls never feel delicate. Like other buildings from the period, the stone houses are less formal than their predecessors. This informality is mainly shown by the lack of straight lines. Another influence deeply interwoven is storybook style architecture, which gained popularity in the 1920s. It mimics rural European architecture and often uses found or recycled material, including architectural pieces recovered from the homes of Chicago lumber barons, or carefully weathered new material. The wavy roofs connected uneven rafters with lath or shearing and multiple layers of cedar-shakes. Another storybook style feature often employed by Young is the squat, cartoonish chimney that appears to be sagging and dripping with gingerbread house frosting. There is no escaping that Young had an organic relationship with the stones he used in his architecture, so much so that it was roofs and built boulders and that shaped his work. The result has been described as lithotexture.
Charlevoix was originally a lumber town. Have you guys all been to Charlevoix before, by the way? Never? You never? Okay. And you guys have been?
I don't know the history.
It's been years, but I have.
Robert?
Nope, I've never been here.
Okay. So we were originally a lumber town, became a resort town when the rail station went in 1906. It was founded 1868 and named after a French minister named Pierre-Francois Xavier de Charlevoix. So he was traveling. He was going to pass right by here, but there was a huge storm. He had to take cover. He fell in love with it so much we named the whole town after him. So that is actually why we're called Charlevoix. It was his thinking how great it would be to permanently attach Lake Michigan to what is now Lake Charlevoix back out this way. So in 1870, they hand dredged the Pine River Channel, which runs from the lighthouse underneath the drawbridge. That took 10 years to dig out. I'm sure a ton of people. They got it done. It's now one of the only channels in the world where the current runs both directions at all times.
Wow.
So it's a little bit of trivia for you guys. No reason other than the lady who owns the house felt like it. So he's kind of cool. See him right on top of the house?
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, he's just kind of cool. And then we're in the historically protected district at the moment. You can see it with this sign up here. I always start at this big stone because this big stone just tells us we've arrived at the Park Avenue section of Earl Young's houses. So Earl Young, of course, is the name of the guy who built all of these. So he was born 1889, he died 1975, so he was 86. He spent his whole life in Charlevoix. He only did houses here, so you won't see them anywhere else, which is always why it's so special that we have them. As a kid, though, he loved collecting stones, and I think just the older he got, the bigger the stones were getting, till he was pulling ones out to our right. That's a 3-ton glacier-fed boulder. So he would pull those out of Lake Michigan using workhorses and chain, but keep in mind he was a touch over 5 feet tall, so he was really short. Here's a picture of what he looked like.
Oh, wow.
And he would get these huge, massive boulders up here. He didn't know what to do with them at first, so it is said he would hide them and rebury them all over town. I'm sure everybody thought he was a little crazy right off the bat. He went to school, though, at the University of Michigan. He just quit after the first year. He said it was, quote-unquote, too structured. Keep in mind he was self-taught. I think that makes a big difference when you see these two. Yeah. So he basically gets back from school. He becomes a certified stonemason. He gets his real estate license in this time. He buys this house. Now, this is called the Pines. Unfortunately, the owners haven't been back in like 4 years, so it's just been sitting here. But all he did is the stonework. That was his first go at things in 1916. So again, just kind of a weird house that they don't keep up. Yeah, and somebody does own it. So now we get to the good stuff. From here on down, yes, these are all vacation rentals, by the way.
Oh, they are. Yeah, isn't it darling?
So it looks like it's been cut right in half. Of course, we call this one the half house. Now, originally, he wanted this one to come out more on that far side. It was going to be almost more like a mushroom shape. Whoever lived next door at the time wouldn't sell him any more land, so he got mad and made the house look like it was cut in half on the property line, which is why that's like that. There's actually an upstairs to this house with 2 beds up there. It sleeps 6 people, but it's too small to live in, so of course they vacation rental it. He was really here's a picture of what the inside looks like.
Oh, that's cool.
And then he was really known for keeping everything in with nature, right? So he would put planters at the tops of his fence posts. Very known for that wavy, crazy cedar-shake roof line. He used to say he would design his roofs first and shove the house in underneath. That was his semi-famous quote. Speaking of roofs, we have the thatch house. Jen, if you ever want to hop out on your side, feel free to, hon. I'll watch for you. Like, it's a little hard sometimes to... We don't normally have 2 singles, and not that that's a bad thing, but it's just, I wouldn't normally, like, try to see 2 strangers next to each other, but
I'm just gonna grab it.
Here we are
I'm just
doing
gonna
it.
I'll just ask you to send me.
Karen, send me that when you get a chance.
This is what this looked like originally, though.
Oh,
So
wow.
completely
Oh,
different.
really?
He basically built this. He lived in this house for years, but he hated this house. He never liked it.
Oh, wow.
Since he didn't like it, nobody else did, so it was like becoming dilapidated over the years. So fast forward to 2015, a South African engineer, no problem, fell in love with this house. Basically, he fell in love with the houses, bought this one, and decided to redo it to what he thought Earl would like if he were alive today. So it's a true thatched roof. Those are reeds that were shipped in from the Netherlands. An Irish architect spent like a year putting this together. It's supposed to last 70 years. This is a vacation rental, sleeps 15 to 20.
Wonder what it rents for.
Well, it's a lot. It is a
bet.
lot. It's like 3,000 a night this
Oh
time of
my.
year. But it sleeps 20 people. That's why.
Okay, so you have families.
Yeah, exactly. Now the black stuff at the top is cement. That's meant to seal the seams of the thatching. Hi, girls.
I wanted to hear all your insights.
So it's meant to seal the seams of the thatching. The owner wanted it to look like it was dripping down like frosting. So he did that basically because Earl Young did the snow cap chimney on the next one. So you'll see it looks like it's got a permanent snow
Look
cap.
at this with the windows there.
Okay, so this is the house that he built for he and his family, 1946-47. He and his wife lived here till they passed away. This was considered to be Earl's house, all right? So let me get up. Let me go at an angle here a little bit. It doesn't look like much from the front. I always tell everyone, try to imagine what the other side looks like. We won't see it till we come back this way. It's totally different than what you think, though. And then he loved limestone. This is on-a-way cut stone, which he uses on a lot of his houses. He also loved original windows and doors, so it's got these like original bevel glass windows in a diamond shape. You'll notice a lot of diamond shaped windows in his houses. There's a reason for that we'll see at the end. All right, now this one, I usually go in an angle for this one, but I can't because this car is parked right here. But this, we've got the tide and abide. So let me get up here. I'm going to try to lean back as far as I can. The tide was built 1943, and basically he just built this because he felt like it. It is 2 to 3 times bigger than it looks. We're going to see it from the other side. So Frank Lloyd Wright used to do a technique that when you look straight at the front of the house, you can't see the front door. So he started to do that. So the front door is like tucked off to the side, which you don't notice that on every house. You don't see the snow capping, the diamond windows on every house, but he always does these cute little stone footpaths kind of from the street to the front door in every house. They're all different. It's just something to watch for. And then Abide was 1938 for the Abide family. They were from Chicago. They asked him for a Hansel and Gretel style summer house, which is what he gave them if that's what they wanted. It's got the arched diamond windows, the snow capping. This is tiny though. This is under 800 square feet. Let me show you a picture of the fireplace. Go ahead. Did you get a picture? Are you going to pop out? Okay. Here's the fireplace.
Oh, wow. Oh, isn't that beautiful?
And then for whatever reason, he didn't like kitchens and cooking, so his kitchens were always really terrible, even in his own house. So you'll see up here when we go by the little back room, only half of that is the kitchen, and it's so tiny that you can only fit like a mini fridge. No washer and dryer fits in there. There's no closets in that house, so it is like a closetless house. All right, it does. One more on the left, and then you guys on the right will get one finally coming up. So we have the red roof house coming up. Now most people just pass right by this one. They don't even think he did it anyways because the roof doesn't look like this. He built it. He tried to put a thatched roof on this when he did it. He just didn't do the thatching right. So whoever bought it from him ripped it off. They put something like this up instead, which he hated so much. He actually refused to admit he built it after that, but we know it's his. It's got all of his trademarks too. It's got the hidden door, diamond windows. It's got a snow-capped chimney, but it's hard to see, and then a little snow-capped fence. So we do know it's his. He was just fussy. He didn't like people changing anything. Very similar to Frank Lloyd Wright. Yeah, they had a lot in common. They never met each other. The white one. Yeah. This is called the Setcher House, though, because this was originally built for the Setcher family, 1948. Now, the Setchers were really wealthy. They actually owned Speedway 79 Gas and Oil. They had a ton of money. They told Earl Young to do any design he wanted, and he was nervous because he wanted to impress them. So he said he stood back, looked out, and saw a third grass, a third water, and a third sky. So he designed the house around that. 3 chimneys. 3 small windows in front, 3 big windows in front, and the house is in 3 main sections, so organically it fits beautifully. Let me show you the fireplace in here. Here is the fireplace.
Wow.
And then we're going to pass by this on our way back. We're going to see this one again. But the rock wall was done to represent water, so it's kind of up and down and in and out. Those are waves crashing at all the ends. He did these huge oversized planters at the tops of all the posts, lights at the bottom. Those still work to this day.
Wow.
Now, the Setchers sold this in the 60s. Whoever bought it at the time thought this is too much property. So they ended up planting these trees that are right here. They basically sold everything from this tree line over off. But originally, this was all the Setchers' land. So the rock wall goes around the entire thing. We call this the Great Wall of Charlevoix because it goes on and on here. It goes on and on. And literally goes all the way, almost down to the water. So look down the shoreline, and all of that waterfront footage used to be the Setchers, which is a lot to own even back in 1948. So That would have been worth a fortune had they kept it all one piece. There's the Beaver Island Ferry coming in. If you haven't seen that yet, that goes back and forth to Beaver Island every day. The hospital used to be a campground and nothing else was down here back in the day. This was all nature. This is where Earl did like all of his stone hunting. There are boulders everywhere out here. He was pretty much in heaven. I think he finally just figured I'm going to just build my houses down here and make my life easier. So he actually acquired all this land at one time, came up with the concept to make this an entire village of stone houses only. It was going to be called Boulder Village. That never came to be. That was too ambitious for one guy, but they still dedicated to him. They call it Boulder Park. That's a 7-ton boulder and the last stone he ever pulled out and erected. So it's a lovely dedication. He just didn't get all the houses done, but he got a bunch, which of course includes this next one called Boulder Banner. Now for you guys on the right, we are going to stop at this one when we come back, so you will get a front row view of this one. But check out the size of the stones.
It's crazy. Unbelievable. Just the weight.
Right?
Just to get them up there and they're vertical.
Yeah.
On top of it.
So he started collecting these in 1920 and didn't start building till 1928. It took 8 years to get the stones. He gets going, and then he gets halfway done. So it looked like this. The Great Depression hit. He lost his to the bank. He went belly up. He was devastated. By some miracle, he got a huge commission. I will show you which one that is down here. That gave him enough to buy this back and finish it. It did take 11 years to build it, though. 8 years to collect the stones. Almost 20 years for one house. So this is kind of his true labor of love, and he never lived here. He just built this and sold it. Now, you will notice, oh, go ahead. You want another? Go ahead. Nope, go right ahead.
I'll leave these out after that.
So everybody keeps in theme with these, everybody keeps in theme with boulders. There's a lot of houses that are not his, these two are his. This one is just it's got kind of that Great Floyd Wright Prairie. He took all the stones that were too small for Boulder Manor and built this for practice. It was like a practice house. Look at the view these guys have though. So this is a vacation rental, of course, and probably my favorite mushroom vacation rental, mushroom house visits at the private beach. These would have been the original entrance pillars as the entryway into the village. It's got the door off to the side on this one. Yes, this one. Let me go back to you guys. And then everybody can make changes down here because we're out of the historic district. So you'll notice people changed a lot of the roofs. Try to imagine these all have cedar-shake just because that's all he ever used. He probably would have disowned every house down here. Were he alive to have seen him change, you know. He didn't like when people changed anything. It annoyed him. These are all public roads, and again, a lot of these all back here are vacation rentals, whether they're his or not. There's his very first snow camping he ever did. And then these guys face west. They get the sunset every night too. And look at how beautiful this stonework is, considering this was just practice.
And this was built when?
This was 1928.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. And then, of course, everybody keeps in theme. You'll see a lot of little stone house mailboxes around. Over to the right is only the second house he ever built. So we're talking early 20s. He was so new at this that he just was experimenting and mixed in iodine in with the mortar. So we call it the red mortar
this
house.
one here?
This one right here. So you can tell it was kind of early on in his career though, because it just doesn't have a lot of his little things that he would do. So then we have Owl House and Pagoda House coming up. Owl House is 1933 because it looks like two owl eyes in front. And then notice underneath the windows he would put stones sticking out to hold up the flower pots and flower boxes, which I think is a genius idea.
Oh my God.
Probably one of his nicest entryways he ever did is on this house because it's got curved stairs, curved banister, little alcove. Pagoda House is 1934. It has Swiss, Oriental, and Gothic influences, and he did this beautiful Gothic style window with a keystone at the top. Tallest chimney he ever built is on this one. Hidden front door, footpath going up. And then we have the back of Boulder Manor. Check out the size of the stones, first of all. And then up here, you're going to see something called the doghouse. This is just a little kid's playhouse, yeah. So he wanted his kids to hang out with him down here while he was working, and basically threw them together in a kid's playhouse. And then just sold it with a big house. And that was done. Planters at the tops of the posts again. He didn't do a lot of garages. He thought they took away from the beauty of the house, so he did not do this garage. If you look at the side of the pagoda though, look at all the detail on the house. He also never did any blueprints. He would take a stick and draw his design or outline his design in the dirt. That's how he showed his workers what he was talking about. So the fact they could understand him is pretty amazing. Here's
And
the
it's still
kitchen.
standing?
It's still standing. Here's the kitchen and all you get for a driveway. Yeah, so there's not a ton of amenities on these. That's why a lot of them are vacation rentals. Because it's too hard to really live in some of these. So these are not his, obviously. On most of them. He never did really storage of any kind. You always have to get extra storage units if you own these, because he never did storage. See how the red mortar would look better with the cedar-shake roof, though? It just would look better. And then and here, let me back up a little bit for you. Did you want a picture? Yeah, there we go. There's no record of anyone building this house up here, but the Historical Society thinks he might have had a hand in it just because it's got the arching back here, and this is a vacation rental. So the one straight ahead is definitely his, though. It is called the White Mortar House because he was influenced off of English cultural cottages, which you can tell he went to Europe. So it's got that rolling roof on it. Now, normally in England, they would thatch this, but he didn't know how to thatch, so he used cedar-shake at the time. They had to steam each shingle to get it to bend around the roll. So for that reason, this was one of the hardest houses he ever did. It doesn't look like it would be. It's also one of the only full houses he put a rope mortar on, where the mortar kind of sticks out like a rope. We're going to see why he did that at the end too. There is a reason. And then house across the street, one of his apprentices built this one and he just assisted him. It's just not technically considered a mushroom house. He wanted all these back here made of stone. I mean, in his mind, we were supposed to be driving through this fairy tale village of all of these stone houses. Unfortunately, when the Depression hit, he was actually so broke, he had to start selling the land off to whoever would buy it. That was the end of the village idea, which is too bad. Because it would have been cool to have all of these stone. Mm-hmm. Just everybody turns them into vacation rentals, but that's all right. It would have been cool back in the day, like all of them stone, all of them lived in. It would just been really cute. Well, he liked to experiment on every house, do something different on each one, and do things in threes. He did a red mortar house, a white mortar house, and just because he could, he probably thought it was funny. He did a green mortar. So there's the green. 1923-24, he mixed a copper oxide into the mortar and it turned to green. That has stayed the same shade of green since the day it was built.
Really?
So I love the green way better than the red. I'm not a huge fan of the red, which I didn't want to say in front of the renters, but that's not my favorite thing he ever did.
But it fits with the topography with the green.
Yes, the green goes, and we will see the green from the front. We're going to loop around these last two, and we'll loop around and see these on your way out. Now, these are just the back sides of what are called the Panama houses. We have to get to the fronts. First one built for Herman Panama in 1932. This is the commission that saved his career financially. Had he not gotten this, I don't think he would have recovered. Herman actually had a son named Norman Panama who was a screenplay writer. He wanted his own writing house built. I'm going to get to the front of this because you don't see much from back here. It's not a garage, it's a full house, but this is where he wrote the movie White Christmas in this house. So let's go see it from the front. So White Christmas of all places was thought of and written there. And then just a cute little mix of architecture. Kind of a mix of everything. So another reason, well, there's this cute little Lincoln log cabin, I call it. I have a fun fact if you guys don't know this. Frank Lloyd Wright's son is the one who came up with the toy Lincoln logs. That was his idea. Isn't that funny? And then we're in such an amazing area, kind of nestled in the woods and right by the water. Unfortunately, we get this great view of the cement plant again, though. There it is. Wow. Usually tell everyone just to look a different direction. Try not to look that way. Yep. Much better looking this way. Much better. It's been so dry that all of our leaves are drying and falling off, and it's just starting to look like fall too much. So we need some more rain. There's the front of the white Christmas house. Right up there at the top of the hill. You can see how adorable it is. Look at the difference a real cedar-shake roof makes.
Yes, huge.
The main house, he actually went really traditional and conservative on the design. That's what Herman wanted, so he had to tone it down a little bit. If you notice, he used a different...
This is the main house?
Yeah, he used a different stone pattern he never used before. After, it involves a lot of smaller stones.
I was going to say.
So if you add all the small stones in the house to the ones in the fence, it's thousands he had to collect for one house, which is a lot of stones for one guy. These would have been the original exit pillars out of the village. So this would have been the way out. It's got an arch front door that's kind of off to the side on this one. Mm-hmm. Notice underneath all the windows are stone sticking out. Mm-hmm. And then he was totally done with this house and ready to move on. Herman at the last second had to have a master bathroom added on. So this is Earl's idea of adding a master bath kind of on the fly to this house. They still use it as that, yep, to this day. That's the master bathroom. So these guys who live here are the only full-time Mushroom House residents we have left. They own a great little restaurant called My Grandmother's Table. So if you see that restaurant, that's them. Yeah. And then the last two down here are just the green and next door called the Chalet. You have to really envision them with cedar-shake. It makes a huge difference. Their last name is Corn. It's got a eyebrow window on it. It just would have again had cedar-shake roofing, and it would have had the leaded glass. Same goes for the last one down here because he was Swiss and German, and he really loved the Bavarian style. So this last one was meant to look right out of Switzerland, which it does. It's got the style. However, it would have had the cedar-shake. It had the diamond windows. And they had taken both of those off before this picture was taken, but this is the original color. So add all three together and it was right out of Switzerland.
Yeah. That one looks more Bavarian.
Yeah. So it's just kind of what happens. If they're not kind of historically protected, they get changed, and just the way it is.
And so this is not historically protected?
No. None of these houses down in this area. Now this is a new build. A local guy is attempting to build his own modern day mushroom house from scratch. He's been working on this for 4 years. This huge one's a 25-ton boulder that he had shipped in from downstate. He's going to use that in around the house somewhere. We're just trying to figure out where he's going to put it, but 25 tons. I always say that gives you guys a great excuse to come back. You have to see what the modern day mushroom house turned out to look like.
Do they say how long it will take to...
He hasn't said. I know. Isn't that crazy? I've not seen him down here once this summer. So it's going to be a minute before they're done.
Well, that's the one.
That's the white mortar.
Yeah. With the
rolling roof. That white part was all added on.
Okay.
So you can kind of tell.
Yeah.
There's the renters over there and the fake red mortar, or the copycat. Or Earl did it, but he would never do the same thing twice. So I question whether he did that second red mortar one. Here's look at the beautiful prairie house though. Remember, this was just practice. I just think it's lovely for being just practice. When I get up here to the stop sign too, look to the right, because you'll see all the cedar trees are kind of permanently leaning to the east because of the wind down here.
Oh yeah.
And then, speaking of huge stones, I'm going to show you Boulder Manor's Cornerstone. It's not 25 tons up here, but it's still pretty big. This cornerstone always looks like it's holding up the whole house. So there it is, and you can see he did a double arched entryway. They actually had to brace each stone into place, do it one at a time. He got the arching perfect on it though, so he did have a knack of knowing which stone should go where.
Honestly.
The egret has been in the window since the late 50s. So the same bird sculpture's been in here this whole time. Just the fact he was so tiny, they moved these stones around with horses and then only had a pulley system to lift him up. So that's kind of what's so fascinating about it. I think you're on, I was going to say, I think you're on video. So yeah, especially on this house where it's so big. All right, let's get out of here before the tour bus gets down here. Let's get out of here before they come down. Well, that was Boulder Park. We're going to see the back sides of those earlier houses. I still have his mushroom house to show you. Red River Tours, guys. Here's that Great Wall of Charlevoix coming up again, too. So just see how it's up and down and in and out.
And he did that.
He did all this, yeah. Yeah, bless you. I know. Let's see what this person's doing. Are they turning or not? Yep, they're turning. No, it's so funny on this turn. Nobody ever turns their turn signal until the last second for some reason. Okay, so let me just show you how you can see right through this one to the water. Isn't that awesome? Just, yeah. And then the one that's here on the right is his. The only part that's original on here is this little front red part and red chimney that was all the red stone he could fit into his truck from the UP, Upper Peninsula redstone. So look at the roof that was put on. Yeah, the roof makes all the difference. Roof makes all the difference. Alright you guys, so as we're heading back, I just remind everybody too, there are 3 commercial buildings in town that you can stop in anytime to check out and also consider staying at. But we have all these mushroom house vacation rentals. He also did the Weather Vane restaurant, Weather Vane Hotel, and what's now the Hotel Earl. So if you don't want to stay and just go check those out though, go check out the lobbies of the hotel and the main dining room of the restaurant's Fireplace. They're like the best he ever did, and it gives you a wonderful idea of the insides of the houses. So feel free, they love when people stop by. So feel free anytime. What are you guys going to do after this? The kitchen door, that's the kitchen right there. That's all you get. And then a little...
The handsome Gretel house.
It's teeny tiny.
Wow.
He hated cutting trees down too, so there's a tree growing right out of the house. Also notice too, he never leveled the land off. He just built right along with what was there, which is always why the house. That goes with why we call them mushroom houses. Not the reason, but goes with it. And then, let's see. This just used to be a pond. You could come through the entryway, loop around the middle. It was filled with fish and water back in the day. Back of a tide, which isn't any big deal except for the rock wall, goes right into the back of Earl's house. So let me get at an angle here. This is the one I said imagine what you think the back looks like. One of the only houses he ever put a garage on was his own house. He actually gave himself one, just hardly anybody else. You go through the garage to get to the lower level, so there is an underneath that you can't tell is there.
Like a true mushroom.
Right.
Underground.
Underground, exactly. And then just notice, everything kind of cascades down back here like a waterfall. So he actually called this his waterfall house. He had his waterfall house and Frank Lloyd Wright had Falling Waters, which is totally different, but it's the same theme.
Look at the chimney.
Yeah. Isn't that neat? And then, but like a lot of that limestone back here for sure.
Unbelievable that this is the back of that house.
I know.
Remember that
I
looked
know.
so
You're right. That's what I was saying. I know. Like the front looks like so boring, and then you get back here. Straight down this driveway, which we're going to see here in a second, is its own separate house back here. This isn't attached to the big house. It's called the Chalet back there. I like to go on another angle here. So that's not attached. The same guy who redid the big one, redid the Chalet. He put a thatch roof on that, and he owns this one called the Cottage. He rents all three out separately. So these are all included in the 4.5 million. If you saw it on Facebook or anything, this is for sale. 4.5 million is like a package. The big thatched house, chalet, cottage. The cottage and the house next door, Earl Young only did the outsides to these two. They're still called mushroom houses though. Even though he didn't design and build them, he still worked on them a lot. You can see he was trying a lot of different like techniques, you know. He must have been experimenting on the cottage.
But he's got that.
The rope mortar, exactly. And then there, straight back there's the back of the big thatched house. So you can see it's it's 3 levels over 3,000 square feet. The owner put the diamond shaped windows on there too, which I like.
Yeah.
So that was like an ode to Earl Young.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then we're going to be at the mushroom house. So let's see here. I'm going to turn and face the mushroom house from the front, but you'll be able to see it kind of taking its mushroomy look, but I'm going to go right to where Alex is. I do have a quick side note. Our library is up here on the right. It was voted one of the most beautiful libraries in the state. It is gorgeous to walk through if you guys get a chance. FYI that's there. So 1951, he was determined to do a house that looked like a button mushroom, and everyone said he was crazy to do this. I think they thought this was going to turn out to look ridiculous, but it ended up being one of his most photographed houses he ever did. So it is a circular floor plan. All the rooms kind of go in a big circle around the chimney and fireplace like the stem of a mushroom, right? Sure. The windows are actually true leaded glass windows from a Polish castle he managed to save and use on this house. And then the woman who owns it, she bought it in the 60s. She had to re-roof it in the 90s. She spent more to re-roof it than she did buying it. She had every shingle match exactly how he had it. So we do love her for that because it always has to stay this way. Is this your mom?
No, it's her sister.
Her sister.
Sorry.
You're so cute. No, you're so adorable. Well, you see, I haven't even like glanced really back, so I just have been sitting next to you, but you're very motherly and very loving in person. I can tell.
Well, my daughter and her are 14 months apart, so I could be.
That's so funny.
Isn't that funny?
Well, this is for sale for $1.4 million, everybody.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
Just in case you want to buy it. I know. Way too high. Way too high. He had this little pinch of land left over. At this point, he was heading off to do the commercial buildings. He wanted to get one last house done. So it's called the Carriage House. All he did was take the rock wall from the very first house, the pines, right? He spread that same design into the side of his last house at the time in 1953. Essentially connecting first and last house at the time.
And when did he pass?
So
She said
1975, yeah.
75,
Thank you.
Okay.
So basically, we went in one huge continuous loop to get to all of these because we're like right back to where we started at the Park Avenue stop. So he built these so you see them full circle, which for a little 5 foot tall guy who never finished school, I say that's not too shabby. And grew up in Charlevoix of all places.
And was bankrupt.
And was bankrupt.
And turned it around.
And people made fun of him and said he was going to do bad.
Right.
So he also would practice a lot on his buddies' houses all over the neighborhood. This is his up here.
Well, now you can kind of see.
Yeah. I gotta mention Earl Young's poor wife at the end too, because she took no credit for helping with any of this, and she helped a lot. She probably put up with a lot. She was an artist. So her maiden name was Hersha. I think the they turned her childhood home into our historical society just to give her a whole lot. That's open today too. If you want to stop by, Robert, you might like this place too. If you're really interested in the Earl Young and the mushroom houses, this is like the place to go. We're going to drive right by it. It's just called the Hersha House Museum, so they always have a free exhibit. It happens to be of her artwork, but anything else you ever want to know about these houses, right here to the right. So that's where his wife grew up and is our museum. And then it just so happens, Earl Young happened to grow up in this house right across the street. This was his childhood home. They were across the street neighbors as kids.
Now, what about the windows?
Well, exactly. So notice the first thing you see are the diamond windows. It's got leaded glass windows. It's even got leaded glass diamond windows. It's got the rope mortar we saw in the white mortar house. Cedar-shake siding. Used to have a cedar-shake roof, so he basically got his greatest inspirations from his childhood home. They were friends as kids.
A big home for back then.
Yeah, I mean, I guess his parents
You think
probably
about it.
did all right. They owned an insurance and real estate company. So they were married 67 years, 4 kids. All of the kids are passed away. Nobody from his family owns any of these.
Oh my.
So we're hoping to get a mushroom house to use as our tour hub someday, but we need one way less than 1.4 million to hang in there. Some very cute stores in this back alley. True North's one of my favorite stores in town. It's adorable. Cute restaurants back there too. When you get back out onto Bridge Street, the main street in town, there is one last house that he did, but it's on a private drive facing the water. You have to like look towards the drawbridge to see it. It's called the Castle House. It's inspired off of Castle Farm, so it's hard to miss. I'll show you a picture so you get the gist. So when Robert, you just go kind of out on Bridge Street and down a little bit, you'll get a great view of this if you really want a good picture of it. That's what it looks like. So again, just look that direction. His daughter did the house next door. That was her first house she ever built. And then his last. So they were done side by side, mid to late 60s. His is valued over like 7 or 8 million. So he went out with a bang.
So is Castle Farms any relation to any of that?
Hope you guys enjoyed this. This was awesome. I'm gonna give you guys the information if you guys want to go check out the mushroom houses for yourself. And there is their info right here. The Hobbit Houses, they call them also. But until the next adventure, guys, I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care, everybody. Much love. Peace.